Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is longtime listener, poet laureate, and Taya master Anne-Marie Young. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And Anne-Marie, it's good to have you back. Good to see you again.
You. Good
How's
to
it
see
going?
you. Very well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. You have a muffler, as you guys we call them scarves, but you're kind of wrapped up there. It tells me it's kind of cold where you are.
It's a bit chilly, but yes, I'm definitely keeping warmer with this on. That's for sure.
That's beautiful. I love it. All right.
Trying to get in the Christmas theme of it all.
Yeah, well, it's got a nice little. It's kind of a UK theme, really. So it looks good. Yeah. So anyway, we're joined today by Russell, who he's going to be telling us a story in a moment, but his main message is essentially that dyslexia is not something that needs to hold anyone back under any circumstances, which is something we definitely resonate with around here.
Yeah.
I mean, as you know, we talk a lot about the various ways that we can take control of our own lives, and that literally it comes down to what we choose to give our attention to and how we choose to respond to things and so forth. And I kind of suspect it's going to be the same thing with Russell, but we're going to find out in just a moment. So Russell, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great.
And you got to give us your story. So how did you end up to the point where you wanted to come onto a podcast and talk about this kind of thing?
Well, for me, it's because I have the worst case of dyslexia people have ever seen. And I went through, I would have to say, one of the most profound cases of discrimination people have ever came up with. And that compelled me to literally go out and spend a couple of decades to solve dyslexia.
Wow. Okay. So give us a little bit of the details here, because that sounds pretty serious.
Well, it was the late 90s. I was finishing up college and I wanted to know how laws were created. I didn't want some class. I wanted to know.
Mm-hmm.
So I applied for the New York State Assembly internship program.
Really? I went through that same program.
You did?
When I was in school, I went through the exact same program.
The New York, what year did you go?
Oh, this was well before you. This was 1978, I think it was.
Okay. Well, I went through it in 97.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what happened is I show up there and I said, here's my neuropsychological evaluation. I have a first grade reading and writing level. And as you remember, most assembly interns, you had the assembly member, the chief of staff, who used to be in the internship program probably a year or two before, and the intern. And that's it.
That's it.
And with a first grade reading and writing level, you can imagine the disaster of me trying to take down notes and, all sorts of things.
To be perfectly honest, I'm not so sure that it was a big difference, because considering the people I worked with in the assembly, most of them didn't have much more than a first grade reading level. So I think you're kind of on par. That's just my opinion. I'm just saying.
Well, what ended up happening is it went up to the speaker's office because the program director said, this just won't work. And the speaker said, you have to accommodate this kid. You are not sending him away. So they got a committee together and they decided to do something pretty radical. They removed me from the legislative office building and they put me over in the Capitol.
Really?
Yeah, specifically the Majority Leaders Program and Council's office.
All right.
And they were kind of concerned about that because, as you remember, being with other interns is a big part of the internship. And when I went in there, I could see why they did it. There were 3 administrative assistants, and they had no idea what to do with an undergrad intern, like zero. They dealt with graduate students. And as you remember, that is not go get the coffee internship. That's a real staff position. Yeah. So I was like, cool. All right. I was willing to give up the social aspect in order to do real work. So mine was casino gambling. So what they told me was, we now have 3 administrative assistants who can help out. And they said, listen, the director, we help him out with all this. I turned in my first piece of writing. They're like, okay, this is special, but they made it work. So I had a great internship that way. Instead of the big research paper, for the academic portion, I gave a very long presentation, hours long. So at the end, they recommended 15 credits of A-. Everything is great.
That's great. Fabulous.
But remember, I was in the Majority Leaders Program and Council's office. So the people that I had access to were so much better than anybody else got. I was offered lobbying positions. I was offered senior positions within the state because I could pick up and talk to the people that ran the assembly day to day anytime, because I stayed there late. I came in Saturdays, Sundays, whatever. I was there when they needed me.
And you had relationships with them because you were working right there in the office.
Yeah, and they liked me because I really I'm like, I'm not here for 9 to 5. I'm here for whatever it was. So then, as you remember, they gave you a recommendation when it went back to your university. And the university didn't have to accept that, but they normally did. Well, this goes back to the political science department of the State University in New York Center at Buffalo. They didn't like
you gotta be kidding me. I went to school for a year at Buffalo, but we won't go there. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, you can imagine they didn't like the accommodations the state came up with.
Well, that's fair. I didn't like them either, so I get that.
Well, guess what they decided to modify my A- to for 15 credits?
I'm guessing it came down considerably.
Take a wild guess.
I'm going to be really kind and say B-.
F. They flunked me.
They flunked you.
They flunked me. So at that point, yes, and it's still there. It's still on the only time in the history of the assembly internship. So at that point, I said, I'm done with the discrimination I felt I had all my life. And I asked my college professors where I could go to learn to force myself to read and write so I could teach other dyslexics.
Okay.
And they said, law school. So
I love it.
yeah, you're going to love this one. So then I said, okay, I'm going to law school. So it's second day of contracts. And as they do in law school, they ask you, they use the Socratic method. They will literally pound you into the ground.
Oh, yeah.
By asking you questions you can't answer. That didn't happen to me. Second day of contracts, I'm called on. It's a dyslexic professor named Professor Warner. I respond as his equal, not as a student. He tries tripping me up every which way. I'm responding back. He's getting annoyed, so he's yelling at me. I'm yelling at him. It goes on 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. He throws up his arms, said, Russell, you can't be any more correct. In the interest of time, I have to move on. I learned law school in that 15 minutes. I found later that dyslexics, once we go to grad school, we own the place day one or soon thereafter.
Interesting.
I learned to read within a month. I learned to write within a couple of years. Then I went back to the New York State Senate and I said, I want you to fund my dyslexic research project, which they don't do.
I'm sure. Mm-hmm.
So they sent me over to the New York State Education Department, who said, if we're going to even look at this, we want a New York State SUNY distinguished professor in psychology to look at this.
Oh,
and they said, where's this located? I said, out of Buffalo. That's their top rank. It's the biggest college, the biggest university center, and they had 2 distinguished professors in psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Just so happens the one who gave me that evaluation for the internship,
same one,
was a distinguished professor in psychology.
What a
and
shock.
she was it was the luckiest moment of my life. So I went in, she tested me for 20 hours over 3 days. Wow. The most brilliant woman I ever met, pounding me for 8 hours a day. So she writes it up and says, yes, he can go from first grade to grad level and back down again. And here's how. So I'm sent over to Professor James Collins to connect my work to his. People said it was going to take years. I had to get it done in less than 2 weeks because there was a university-wide competition I had to enter. So I got A+ in less than 2 weeks and got $15,000. And we tried it out on our first student. She went. I wanted to focus on students like me in high school so they wouldn't have to go through the hell I went through. So they were highly intelligent, highly motivated, juniors and seniors. They went from middle school writing skills to the average of entering grad students.
Wow.
Okay. So we did that for a couple of years, got the state funding, went into the public school, 1 class period a day for the school year, middle school writing, to average range of entering grad students. They all went on to college. They all graduated GPAs of 2.5 to 3.6. Costs less than $900 per kid.
Wow.
And that's how I got started.
That's fabulous. Wow. What a story. What a story arc that is. And I think probably the thing that stands out to me the most, like I said, I've been through some of those institutions. It's not the same way you went. I was doing a different path, but I attended State University of New York at Buffalo for 1 year. Unfortunately, the year that I was there, they put me in a room with 3 other guys, 2 of whom ended up being the biggest drug dealers on campus. So it was kind of ruined the year, just a little bit, and I did go through the state assembly, but I didn't do that through SUNY Buffalo. I actually had transferred to a smaller school, Colgate University, and I did that through that school. But I have to say, your experience, among other things, gives me hope, because when I went to Buffalo, I didn't have any respect for anybody who was there, because they were just, they didn't do anything to help me at all, despite the fact that I asked for help. And it's nice to know that they're actually improved since then. So, you went through some pretty tough stuff there, but the way I'm reading it is they actually got better.
In some ways, yes, but the political science department has still flunked me.
I believe that. I'm sure
So,
it's true.
so as an appreciation for that, for what they did almost 30 years ago, I've been on over 150 podcasts explaining my story.
Wow. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Maybe one of these days they might listen to it. And yeah, one of these days they might notice and maybe want to try to rectify it.
Perhaps. That's a little optimistic, I think. But that would be great if that happened. I'm not against it. Don't get me wrong.
So that's how I got started, but we ran into a little bit of a problem. People thought that what I created was going to work for the typical dyslexic. And I was like, no, it will not. The school district, I said, don't try this on normal kids because it's the GRE writing test. This is for people who graduated from college. Okay, it just gives them exposes them to all these different really hard questions. They tried it anyway. Complete failure. So then I was told I have to go back and figure out how to get the same results, but for normal kids. Now that was a fun one. So what I did, this is a little book called Overcoming Dyslexia by Sally Shaywitz from Yale, medical doctor, brain scans. That's dyslexia. Do you see how the back part of my brain has like next to nothing going on and yours is going crazy?
Yeah.
But the front part of my brain's about 2.5 times overactive.
Right.
All right. So here's the big secret about dyslexia. This doesn't work. This does.
It works. The frontal cortex, it works.
Let's pull it from back here and move it up here.
Yeah.
So when you're doing that with typical dyslexic kids, I looked at that in the front part of the brain. It's word analysis followed by articulation. That Yale initially said articulation followed by word analysis. That's why I did the GRE analytical articulation, same thing. But when I'm dealing with normal kids, I found I had to switch it around. But when I started to try to work with them, I found out I could get them to do precisely nothing. So I'm like, how do I get these normal kids to actually care? And then I remember when I did my when I went to law school for grad school, I was like, yeah, well, if you like politics, you should do well in law school. So, and I did really well there. And then I started asking other dyslexic professors, and they said, well, when they went to grad school, they were horrible K through 12 in college, but when they went to grad school, topped their class day one. I was like, what's going on? Oh, graduate school is very specialized. It's what I like to call a speciality. So I was like, okay, let's explore that. So I'm going to tell you the most motivated kid I ever met to illustrate how important this is. Her name was Casey. I never saw this before. I will never see this again. She was 10 years old at the end of 5th grade, reading at the 2nd grade level, and she turned 11 over the summer, and she loved Theodore Roosevelt, so I assigned her this little thing, The Rise of Theodore Roosevelt.
Okay.
All 900 pages. This won the Pulitzer.
Good sized book.
So Casey, it's for 10th grade to first year college level. So Casey wanted to do reading first, so I gave her the process. I told her to do 10, 20-minute sessions a night, a couple of times a week. I didn't know Casey. Without her mom's knowing, she essentially locked herself in a room 3 hours a night for 6 months.
Wow.
At the end of that, she could read every word in that book and do the dictionary definition of every word in that book. She jumped 8 grade levels in 6 months.
Wow.
Yes. And her mom wanted to know if this was just for that book. So I assigned her something she didn't like. This is my most popular book. This is Walt Disney's The Triumph of the American Imagination, all 1,000 pages of it. Have you ever been to Disneyland or Disney World?
Mm-hmm.
Have you experienced the Disney magic?
I would say.
Yeah.
2 universal themes. Takes most students 1 to 2 years to find them, usually at least 2. Casey figured it out in 3 months.
Mm.
So I told her mom, come on the call because she was going to get a kick out of this. I was like, Casey, you figured it out. You can now, this is transferred over beyond your original book. How did you like Walt's biography? I hated it. I was like, okay, you can dispose of your book. She literally physically destroyed it in front of her mom. She hated it. Here's the key point of why I'm spending so much time on this. I said, Casey, how much did your motivation drop when you moved from something you liked to something you couldn't stand?
Mm.
She said about 50%. Most other normal dyslexic kids, you're talking 75 to 90% drop.
Yeah.
Mm.
So you step outside of that speciality, their area of extreme interest and ability, you're down 75 to 90% for most kids, thus making the intervention, it's going to fail. So that's the first thing that I've learned with these kids. Number 2, and this is what I got from senior professors. Do any of you know any dyslexics at all?
I know some ADHD. I'm not sure if I know of any.
ADHD works just fine as well because it's the same thing.
Okay.
Give me a name of an ADHD person you really know well.
Oh, one of my co-hosts, Joel Elston.
Okay. What's Joe's speciality? What's his area of extreme interest and ability?
Joel is a life coach. He early in his life, he had a gambling addiction, speaking of gambling. And he went through a whole crash and burn thing on his side and came out the other side and basically turned his life around and today has an amazing life coaching practice and just has done incredible things with his life.
Right. But just name one thing that he really loves that he's really good at. One thing.
One thing I would say working out in the gym.
Okay. So he likes to weightlift.
He weightlifts, yeah.
Okay. All right. So weightlifting. All right. So when Joel's thinking, if you ask him when he's thinking about weightlifting, does he have ideas flying around his head at light speed but with little to no organization? He's going to say yes. I
have a show with him later on. I'm going to ask him that question. Okay.
Well, he's going to say yes to that. So what we need to do is to force the brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Okay. So that's the key. We have to force his brain to organize itself by using writing as a measurable output. Because when you're dealing with, so he's specifically ADHD, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So trying to get him to concentrate on anything outside of his speciality, forget it. It's just not happening.
I think he'd probably expand that to say anything outside of his interest areas.
Yes, I call that his interest, his speciality. So if you put him back into school in doing something he has absolutely no interest in, it's going to be incredibly hard for him to try to focus. You stay within that speciality, he is laser focused. Good luck trying to pull him away.
Yeah, well, he's going to be the one teaching the class when you go back to school. I mean, he won't be sitting there as a student.
Right, but I'm just saying, imagine if he was a student again. If he was something he's not interested in, it's very hard to focus. If it's something he's interested in,
he just he won't even try. It's not even, if it's not of interest, he just, he's gone.
yeah, but when you're a kid, you don't have a choice.
True.
Generally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the key thing is, so during the intervention period, it's not forever, you have to focus on the kid's speciality, their area of extreme interest and ability.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, what I found out is we have to do word analysis followed by articulation. So just so your audience has something that they can leave with a smile they can help their kids with. Did you ever work with ever know a dyslexic elementary school kid? Either of you?
No.
I worked with a dyslexic, you're saying dyslexic and ADHD are the same thing. I worked with a kid who was ADHD many years ago in an alternative school that I helped to start.
Okay. So, I'm saying the treatment is the same thing. How to overcome it.
We didn't really do treatment. We basically gave the kid freedom to follow what they wanted to do, and they did pretty much what you were describing.
Okay. In elementary school, was the kid writing a bunch of essentially randomly placed misspelled words?
Probably, but I didn't really have contact with her when she was in elementary school.
Okay. So I'm just going to give you make up a name for the student.
Okay. Let's call her Joanne.
Joanne. Okay. So what we're going to do with Joanne is to now show your audience how to have the kids not write a bunch of randomly placed misspelled words and how to do some basic sentences.
Okay.
This is the biggest thing that the parents complain about, but also if they're having trouble even with not being able to read, here's a little hint. If you can write a word, you can read it. If you can write it, you can read it. So by teaching writing, you're automatically teaching reading. So with Joanne, what was her speciality? What was her area of extreme interest and ability?
At the time that I got her, getting into trouble. But after that, she actually ended up becoming president of the school over time.
Okay. All right. So politics?
Today, no, I wouldn't describe her as being political. She's
no, but in elementary school, what do you think is something she really loved to do?
At that time, no, I think she was mainly just trying to find her placement in the world. She was trying to figure out who she was and where she could fit, because most of her experience had been very negative.
Okay. So let's just try to say, what would we call that? Just trying to find friends? Yeah,
that was certainly part of it at that time. Yeah.
All right. So let's just say her biggest thing was she wanted friends. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how we're going to go and put this into a basic 3-word sentence, because that's where we have to start off, because these kids are writing randomly placed misspelled words. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to open up a laptop computer, not an iPad, not an iPhone, certainly not handwriting. You're going to type out hero +, what are we talking about? And they're going to copy that. Now we're going to replace hero for Joanne. Joanne +, what are we talking about? Then you're going to have a list of 10 things Joanne really, really likes and 10 things she really, really hates. Okay, dislikes. So the first thing on her list that she really likes is friends. So we got Joanne +, what are we talking about? We're going to replace that with friends. Joanne +, friends. See how we got there?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, I'm going to try to fool you with the simplest questions ever.
Okay.
If you answer them correctly, this will work. If you don't, it's not going to work. And most people have an epiphany on dyslexia. Do you think I'll be able to fool you?
But I wouldn't be surprised, but go ahead.
Okay. So we got Joanne +, friends. Mm-hmm. Now, here's my question. We need to replace the + with a word. Here's my question. Does Joanne like or dislike friends?
It depends. At that time, it depended a lot.
Well, let's say she's really trying to make friends. This is what she's really into.
If she was trying to, then I think we have to assume that she was liking friends.
Okay, so we got Joanne +, friends. Here's my question. We got to replace the +. Does Joanne like or dislike friends?
Joanne likes friends.
Okay, but that's not what I asked.
Okay, fair enough.
Do you see where you made a mistake?
Well, I wasn't sure that I made a mistake. What I did was I tried to make a guess based on what I considered to be ambivalent input. But tell me.
Okay, well, I asked, does Joanne like or dislike Friends?
Hmm.
Okay, that's replacement. But that's not what you answered. Do I have you confused, or do you want to give it another shot?
I think I see where you're going. Why don't you straighten this all out?
Okay, well, I asked, does she like or dislike? You automatically added the S and made a complete sentence.
Hmm.
Joanne doesn't know how to add the S.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay, so that's the big question. How do we get her to add the S? She would have put like. So it would have been Joanne like Friends.
Okay. Not what I
Okay.
was expecting, but that's interesting. Okay.
So how do we get her to add the S? Now, if you're talking about a $75,000 a year private school, you're talking about seeing, touching, hearing, Orton Gillingham multisensory structured language approach. Takes years. It would take you 2 years to become certified and $11,000. Here's how your audience can fix this tonight. Have Joanne read what she wrote out loud. Joanne like Friends. Then you ask, Joanne, does that sound generally correct? She's going to say no. And you're going to say, fix it. Joanne likes Friends.
Hmm.
So we do that with 10 likes and 10 dislikes. Now she's writing a basic 3-word sentence correctly.
Okay.
Okay. Now, do you see how like and dislike is a simple form of word analysis?
The way you're presenting it now, yes.
Okay. And then because and the reasons after because are a simple form of articulation.
Sure.
Okay. So what we're essentially doing with that process is, again, we're going from this back part of the brain where the dyslexic has next to nothing going on, and we're moving towards that front part that is 2.5 times overactive.
Okay.
Where the dyslexic actually has a huge advantage. So we do 10 likes and 10 dislikes of what she likes and dislikes. Then we go because reason 1. Give me a simple reason why Joanne likes to have friends.
She felt like she didn't have real friends.
Joanne likes having friends because she felt she didn't have real friends. Now, do you see how that we probably have a whole mess of misspelled words there?
Oh, undoubtedly.
Here's how we fix that.
Okay.
We tell Joanne to read what she wrote out loud. Does it sound generally correct? We're just caring about grammar now. She keeps rewriting until it sounds generally correct because the schools have a huge problem with massive, huge grammatical issues. This eliminates that. All right. Then for every time, then once that's done, if there's a misspelled word, she has to keep retyping it until it's correct. And she's going to do that between 3 and 13 times generally. Each time she makes a mistake, she's going to concentrate so much harder. I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm not going to make that mistake. And she makes it again and again until she doesn't. As she's concentrating each time to retype it, she's concentrating deeper and deeper to around 9 to 13 times. Sometimes you can see sweat coming down her forehead. That's how intense the kids are thinking. That's where the magic happens. Eventually she gets correct. You do that for the 10 likes and 10 dislikes for reason 1. Then reason 1 and reason 2, 10, make sure all those are spelled correctly. Then reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3. You have now moved her writing to the end of 2nd, beginning 3rd grade level, and the reading has increased significantly because now she knows what those words are. It's that simple.
This is interesting on a number of different levels. To give you a little bit more background, the school that I was involved in creating was one where the kids are completely in charge. There's no staff structured curriculum going on at all. And so literally they follow their noses all day long. So a lot of what happens, first of all, a lot of what happens is not what most people would consider to be classroom work. It's mostly play and exploration and conversations and things like that. But along the way, you can kind of watch from afar and see the arc that kids go through. And they're all different. Every single kid goes through a different arc. But one thing that plays out very consistently is if you let them just follow their interests and follow the things that they're passionate about, which is what you were alluding to, they find the way to learn it. Now, you were describing in detail some things that I'm pretty sure happened that I couldn't see because I didn't see in her particular case, in Joanne's particular case, what she was doing when she was actually learning how to write better. But the net result was very much the same thing. She dove in, she played with it, she learned with it, she did her thing for a while. And then after a period of time, all of a sudden, my goodness, she can write. Where'd that come from?
Exactly.
Very much the same kind of thing. It's just not pre-structured.
Right. And the reason why I'm giving you that structure is because this is the science on what actually works for dyslexics. And I'm just following that with other things that I found have worked over the years. So when people want to know how successful this is, I couldn't tell them because my clients don't want their stories reviewed. People are very, very concerned about their keeping things dyslexia private. Until last December 27th, I met Kimberly, and she said, yeah, you can use me and my son to let people know what it's like. She just had spent $700 to have her kid tested by the state of Ohio. Reed was in 5th grade, 10 years old, reading at the 11th percentile, writing at the 4th percentile. He was retested 6 months later. But I'm going to give you the test results of when he went into public school in August, which was 8 months later, just because these were in school. Mom was nowhere around. It was completely clean. He jumped to the 64th percentile in reading and 65th in writing.
That's cool.
His friends wanted him in 6th grade because he was dyslexic. I'm sorry, because for social reasons. So now he's in normal classes, getting A's and B's. His mom taught him literally 7 times faster than the public school could have taught him, and it's solved. And she did that in 36 hours.
Really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Mom did that in 36 hours.
Yeah.
So that's how effective this is.
Yeah. I believe it. What you described makes total sense to me. I can see where it would probably surprise and freak a lot of people out. I'm kind of wacky. I live outside of the norm of most societies, so it doesn't freak me out. But I love it. I love what you're describing. It's really cool. Anne-Marie, have you heard stuff like this before?
I haven't. This is an area that's not really on my radar. I haven't come across it, but I'm finding this fascinating, and I think sort of we probably had kids with ADHD when I was at school, but they were just classed as problem children and dismissed, really. And actually, I'm loving the fact that Russell's gone in and worked out, this is how the brain works and this is what's happening. And they're actually super clever. And it's just a shame I feel so many people have been written off.
It's true.
In the education system.
Well, here's the thing. I actually used a book called The Craft of Research. Are you familiar with it?
No.
It's a book designed by the University of Chicago in 1995. It sold over 1 million copies to teach PhD students how to write their doctoral dissertations. And I was told to bring that down to grade school, which I've done. So here's an example. It breaks things down into context, get everybody on the same page. What is a problem statement? And then coming up with a solution that's original. So just to show you how we do a more evolved context, we first of all show them how to do basic body paragraphs. But this one, people tend to find very interesting. Is what I'm about to do is show you how to take dyslexic and ADD kids and ADHD kids and have their body paragraph structurally be more advanced than AP English high school kids. Okay. Have any of you ever heard of applying a warrant to a body paragraph?
No, I don't know that.
No.
Okay. So do you remember when you're writing your papers, going through your education, you have your topic sentence, then your data, and do you know how it didn't flow very well? There's something felt a little off.
Yeah, that was pretty frequent.
Okay. Here's what they do at the PhD level. They have you apply a warrant. So what we do is we'll start off, we'll have a hero. Hero wants to accomplish something. We'll find the most important word in that sentence. That's what I like to call a base a base universal theme. And just, let me backtrack a little bit on why that's important. I want you to think of a movie that you think is one of the best of all time that everybody knows. What movie would that be?
I don't know. Star Wars.
Star Wars. Describe the universal theme of Star Wars in one word?
In one word?
In one word.
One word. What word am I going to pick? Rebellion.
Yes, it makes you think. Rebellion. Okay. So can you see how when it came out, the Ivy League reviewers probably wrote, this happened and this happened and this happened. And it's like getting the score of a sports match after you recorded it and before you sit down and watch. It's like, why watch it now? Sound familiar when you read those? So what you do is you would take the word rebellion and then you would ask yourself, how did the director, how did the actors, and how did the screenwriter do? And then you write your review based on that.
Okay.
When you do it through a universal theme, it makes expressing it really focuses things.
Sure.
But the problem is, you see, rebellion is still very broad.
Oh yeah.
It's not really yours. So what we do is when we start off with a more advanced context, we say, what does the hero want to do? And we pick the most important word. And like rebellion, it's very broad. So then we would go to the thesaurus and we would look, maybe you do 5 words, 10 words, the entire level, multiple levels. You try to find the synonym with a definition that best matches what's in your head. And then that's your universal thing. So I would literally have the kids type out the word, type out the definition. And eventually, as they kept doing that, they would develop a vocabulary of hundreds of evolved words that would be with them forever. Okay, so then now we have something much more specific. We would then have the ultimate villain that could best prevent the hero from accomplishing their goals, a person or a concept. So we'd have the hero, the universal theme, and the villain. Make this simple sentence out of that. Then we would come up with 3 good reasons, and I mean good ones. Each reason we would then reduce to a universal theme, which would allow us to find a quote at the beginning of the book and one at the end. We would usually find lots of quotes, then pick the best ones. Those 2 quotes are our data for an involved paragraph. From those 2 quotes, we would then create the topic sentence. And then, because they're from the same universal theme, we would apply a warrant, which is simply asking a how and why question, and connects the topic sentence with the quotes. Now you do that, there's a few other steps that we add on to it, but just doing that, when a university professor looks through and they go, oh, this kid's using a warrant. This is automatically at the college level if done properly. I show that to 6th and 7th graders.
Wow.
That's really interesting. It says a lot of things. It says things about the 6th and 7th graders, but it also says something about the college level education.
Well, yeah, I mean, because literally these kids are not, when I ask about people with master's degrees, I have found precisely 3 that knew what a warrant was and how to use it.
Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
Right. So they may have learned the concept, but they didn't know the term which you learn at the PhD level.
Possibly, yeah. Certainly wasn't something presented to most people going into a master's program, I would think.
Right. So, but I show this, I have students mastering this by the end of 7th grade. So now we start to get a very interesting aspect where the AP English kids, the seniors, are finding that structurally middle school dyslexics are writing more advanced paragraphs than they are.
Yeah, that would be annoying.
And they don't like it.
No, they wouldn't like that at all.
And then we start moving on to a problem statement. Now, what I did there is I removed 2 key aspects to keep it to 1 book. So it's not exactly craft of research material, which is, as I said, PhD level. But what I'm sure you remember Mice and Men?
Oh, yeah.
It allows us to come up with a problem statement that's evolved enough that once we answer with solution, at the solution stage, we actually start using AI quite heavily at this point, that the teacher will have an 80% chance of learning something substantive. So I want you to imagine when most teachers going through who've taught AP English for decades, maybe have 5 to 15 times in their career that they learned something substantive from a student.
Probably.
This happens almost every paper for my kids who go through this. Drives the AP kids crazy.
I can see why.
It really is at the senior level of college.
Wow.
And then
really
if they
interesting to me, too, is that, I mean, there are a number of things that are interesting, but the thing that jumps out to me is that what you're describing is what I might call, well, it's popularly called a hack these days. That's not the term we used to use when I was growing up, but that kind of thing is called a hack. And hacks are something that advanced students like AP English students learn all the time. They learn it in math. Math is just full of hacks, you know. So it's just kind of amusing and fascinating that the students who are advanced students because they learned all these hacks would be put off because younger kids learned hacks that they didn't know. I mean, that's really a fascinating thing.
Yes, because, well, here's the other thing. The professors are expecting these kids to know the craft of research thoroughly before they go on to college. And they're not anywhere in the country.
Right.
Because they were doing it that age, but these are also, you know, academic superstars. So I've actually had kids where they came back to me and said, okay, you showed me that, but I want to do the real craft of research. So, for example, with Mice and Men, they would be looking at disability law and disability ideas applied to that. And there's all these obscure little journals. And I would say, okay, we can add in those steps. And they would literally go and get a couple of dozens of those articles. We would find a hole, and then they would work on that hole. And then the paper they wrote, they could actually submit it for publication. Now, if you actually went ahead and got accepted, do you have any idea what being accepted in even obscure little journal means for your chances of being, you know, allowed into college? I mean, wow.
Yeah, it's fairly significant.
Yeah. And so basically, this is, and if you know how to do this and you don't know anything about artificial intelligence, you can guide it, you can direct it, you can use agents because you understand the entire process. The kids that know this are the ones that get the really good jobs later. If you can't, good luck.
That does lead to a rabbit hole, and I won't have us go all the way down the rabbit hole, but I think we should at least put our toe into it, which is, what do you think the emergence of AI does either for or against kids who are learning the method that you're teaching them?
Oh, well, I can tell you exactly what happened. I had a student who hated AI. This was not 2025, it was 2024. He graduates, and his manager loves AI. He said, I'm not going to have you spend hours and hours trying to write normally when you could have AI draft things for you in 10 minutes. So he wanted to know if they could come up with anything useful to the company. I said, okay. He contacts me. He's scared to death. And I said, okay, pick a model, talk to it, type with it. I don't care. Figure out context. I trained you in this. You practiced in college for 4 years. She comes back. I did that. And I said, okay, go do problem statement. He comes back a few days later. I hate this. I said, welcome to the grown-up world. So then I say, go do a solution. It's 5 paragraphs. It's really tight. And his boss said, yeah, we've had this problem for years. It was never worth it for us to fix, but you found a solution for it. Within a week, he's training his peers on how to do AI. He's trying to say, well, here's how you do the context problem solution, thinking they know what this is. They don't have a clue. All right. The ones that were able to pick it up maintained employment. Those who couldn't were gone. They now expect these kids to become, senior within 6 to 12 months. So how you do that is you have the kids run a deep research project on anything they're doing, and they use that as a model. And I'll tell them not just for the project, but per section, and sometimes even per paragraph, run a deep research report and then model it compared to how you're doing. And then you can learn very rapidly. And those who can do that, they are going to become immensely valuable, have these huge salaries. And if their current company doesn't pay them, somebody else will. The ones who can't, good luck, because a lot of the stuff that you expect them to do, I now have the AI do it for me instead. It's not quite as good, but what used to take them 1 or 2 weeks, I can now have it done within half an hour, an hour. And then my employees, I don't employ anybody with under a master's degree. I then send it to them to fix up and to double check everything, because you have to. And we just move a lot faster that way.
I'm curious too, because you mentioned that they're expected to become senior in 6 to 12 months. Is that because of the fact that we're in the early stages of AI being included basically in the workflow, and people are still
what you're finding is these kids can't get jobs now. Real kids with real majors, with high GPAs from good colleges can't get work. They're going back and doing high school work. And what I'm finding is those who know the craft of research, who are thoroughly trained and can produce in that. Like, for example, I had one of my former students just graduated this May, came to me and she's like, none of my friends can get a real job. I said, okay, we'll find you a real job. Where do you want to work? And she picked out a very hard position. I said, well, you need to use your contacts to get an interview. Then I showed her, here's the process. What problem do they have? She walked in saying, here's a problem I think you currently have. Here's the solution that I did with AI. And I did this in this amount of time. And if you hire me, I can get right on it.
Yeah,
they said, get on it.
Yeah.
They just hired her and they said, get on it.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay. So those who can, they're just, what you're finding is the people our age. We're senior. We know what we're doing. They're giving us a lot of time to get used to this because we know everything. All the AI is good right now is to get you to that first draft really fast. But then you have to have a senior human that can rip it apart, totally redo it and come up, but it gets you to that initial draft. So that's what these kids are being expected to do. And they're just finding that, I'm just saying from the United States, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with it. President Trump did his tariff thing, a lot of uncertainty. So the companies just said, pencils down, let's see what happens. We're getting baby boomers retiring at record levels. The new Zoomers coming in are even smaller than my generation. I'm an Xer. And they're just finding is they just don't need the people. And those that can do really well with the AI, they're going to be they're so much more valuable that their salaries are going way up or somebody else will pay them. Those who can't, well, if you're not going to be 3, 4, 5 times more effective with this, then, next. And they're just not hiring the kids who can't do that.
This is really fascinating because we started off talking about dyslexia and the discrimination you experienced and so forth, and how you developed methods for dealing with it, not only for yourself, but to help other people as well, which was a great storyline. But we've transitioned, as we so often do on the show, we transitioned to a conversation about, well, now that people are dealing with a real life workforce that is dominated by AI, how are they supposed to survive in it? That's a big issue. It's a very important one. And I love some of the topics some of the ways, the subtopics that we're addressing that with, because they're vital.
Right. But the thing about dyslexics is we always had to get good enough to get an assistant. Now the AI is that assistant.
Yeah.
It's helping us in such a tremendous way. And for any real advice, or just so everybody knows that when OpenAI came out with its $200 a month professional account last December, I bought it that day. I have just got rid of it. I moved down to 5.2 thinking because I don't need the pro version anymore, because the thinking is literally more than good enough. I spend $100 a month on Opus 4.5 because the writing there is so much better than I use OpenAI to think, Opus 4.5 for the writing. And then I also do the $20 a month Google thing, and Gemini is just for when I need to scrape certain interviews off from that nobody else has access to. But generally, I spend most of my stuff working with Opus 4.5, and I'll start off not by doing a deep research project. I will ask it when I draft a report, look at this with fresh eyes. Is this 100%? If not, tell me the percentage it is ready to be published, a paragraph why, and up to 25 reasons, the key thing, up to 25 reasons that prevent it from being 100%, and tell me exactly what changes you want to make to get it to 100%.
Right, we gotta fill in some gaps for listeners here, because I understand what you're talking about, but I know a lot of listeners don't. So let's lay some foundation here. You mentioned Opus 4.5. That's a product from Claude.ai.
Yes,
which is one of the major, basically one of the 3 major AIs out there. The major ones being, as you said, OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, Claude.ai, and Google Gemini. Those are the 3 majors. There are a whole bunch more, but those are the ones that are kind of dominating the landscape right now. And you also mentioned ChatGPT 5.2, which is the latest version of ChatGPT, and how much more advanced that is than the earlier versions. That's what you were referring to earlier when you
Yes.
talked about the OpenAI versions. So I'm just
Yes.
trying to lay some landscape here. So listeners,
Sure.
because we keep throwing version numbers around, they're not going to have any idea what we're talking about.
Okay. Well, the thing is, when I'm doing that with Claude and I'm telling that to tell me how to fix, I say, tell me exactly how you want to fix each one. And then I'll say, go and run that and make those fixes until it can't fix it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Then I will take that and I'll ask 5.2 thinking, ChatGPT 5.2 thinking to review it. I found that you always do 5.2 thinking. Don't try to do the instant. It'll take anywhere from an instant response to 6-7 minutes. And what it takes is what it needs to actually get you a good answer.
Yeah.
Claude is not good at thinking. ChatGPT is very good at it. Then I'll ask it, what do you like about this? What do you dislike about this? Then give me an exhaustive list of changes that you want. And then I'll go back and ask Claude, does it agree or disagree with these changes? And it'll agree with some, it'll disagree with others. As a human, you have to make the final determination. Normally, I go with Claude's recommendation, and I keep going until what I asked it to fix is finally, it's getting stupid and doing these irrelevant little things. At that point, we now have a very good working draft, which I will then go to one of my employees who has at least a master's degree, or I'll hire an outside expert on Fiverr. And what I've noticed that when I'm using a ghostwriter, because I use them all the time, I will send them one of these documents that I've worked so hard on for a couple of hours, and they will come back with something that looks completely different. Nothing at all that compared to anything that I originally gave them. And that's the final product.
Mm-hmm.
But I save so much time by going through the AI to get it done.
And what's fascinating to me is now I'm also using all three of those AIs, and the way I'm using them is very similar to the way you're describing.
Mm-hmm.
So the way I use them is the ChatGPT, the OpenAI, the famous one that got the whole thing started. I use that as kind of like my conversationalist. We talk things out of the 35,000 point view, 35,000 foot view. What is it we're trying to do here?
Mm-hmm.
Let's map this whole thing out. Let's figure out what our plan is going to be. Let's figure out what our structure is going to be, all that kind of thing. And it excels at that. And then I take that and I say, okay, write a prompt that I can give to Claude, because Claude's going to compose it, turn it into code, because I'm writing code. So Claude is going to actually compose the thing. And then once Claude is done composing the thing, I review it with ChatGPT, and then once we finish the review, then we hand the whole thing off to Gemini and say, okay, what did we miss? Audit the whole thing for us. And it's different, but it's very similar to what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And with that, then you're just, now when you're going through all those steps, how much more productive are you?
You have to think about productivity a little bit differently, because the tendency is to want to have really, really fast results. What you end up with is you go through some steps that take a little while, but once you're done with them, you realize you just saved yourself a whole bunch of time.
No, but I mean, compared to using the AI the way you're doing it, and compared to doing it all on your own, how much more productive are you using the AI?
It's not even comparison.
Right. So what you just described as a senior person, okay, if you were to go and work for some company X, they know they can hire you and you're going to go in and be productive immediately.
Yeah, probably.
That's what they're expecting these kids to be able to do within 6 to 12 months now.
Which is fascinating, because what that really means is that the owners and hiring managers of the companies really don't understand what the AI is about and how to use it, and how the skill is involved in learning how to use it. They don't get it. They really don't understand.
They expect you to come in and know what to do.
Yeah. Well, but then not only do they expect you to know what to do, they themselves don't know what to do.
Well, depending on, some of them do, some of them don't, some are in between. So what I found that when I worked with my kids and I went in and they would say, like one of the kids that I had said, well, I don't use it that much, but I understand the craft of research. And they literally walked them through how they would solve a problem with the AI right in front of them with the interview. This interview was supposed to last 30 minutes. 4.5 hours later, they were given the job because they said, I knew exactly what questions to ask. They got stuck. They knew how to get around it, went back, and they said, I have never really done this before, but I'm trained in the craft of research. They actually brought up the craft of research, bought it on Amazon Kindle, and they said, you know this? They said, yeah, I was trained in high school.
That
So they were
probably didn't-
hired because
Yeah,
they
right.
could do that. So
Yeah.
I'm just describing how incredibly, like you could describe the work. That's what you have to be able to do now, because as you said, using it or not using it, you can't even contemplate not using it now because
Oh,
you're
it's
so much
impossible.
more productive.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Comparing them it's not even a fair comparison. It's kind of
And-
like trying to compare the automobile to the horse. I mean, it's not even comparable.
Yeah, and just so you know, like Claude, that company was founded by former people that worked at OpenAI. They looked at it and said, well, the consumer's gone. So they went after business people. So instead of a user base of like 1 billion people or 900 million or whatever the huge number is OpenAI is, theirs is 30 million.
Mhm.
But all Claude cares about is business users.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but they went from 100 million in 2023 to 1 billion last year to 9 billion this year. And independent financial analysts think in 3 years, they're going to be at 70 billion. They're going to be
Oh, yeah.
doing more revenue than OpenAI.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Okay. From a much smaller user base.
Mhm.
So that's why I spend $100 a month on them.
Yeah.
Because they're just the final product we're most of us are producing, unless you're a computer guy like yourself, is written product.
Mhm.
And that's what this is so good at compared to anything else.
Yeah. This is fascinating. I don't know. I think I kind of fear that we might have lost the audience a couple times there. Hopefully we were able to pull them back. Actually, I'm going to go to Anne-Marie on that, because Anne-Marie is a former audience member who became a co-host. So how much did we lose you guys? I'm kind of curious.
I'm glad you explained some of it. That really helps. But actually, you didn't. It was, and it's one of the notes that I've made here is finding your resource and using it and learning about it and using that to help you to make things easier and to make things progress. So I think it was, yes, it was very technical, but actually it fits. It be it a book, be it AI, be it a movie series, whatever it may be, documentary.
So you could still make sense out of it and grasp where we were going with it and where the excitement comes into it, because there's a lot of excitement that comes into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I could tell that was bouncing.
So like, I mean, well, we're at the point in the show where we normally do this anyway. Like if you were, this is going to be one of the more challenging ones for you, because I mean, you do this after every time that we interview somebody, but this time I'm asking you to tie it together for something that was a little bit harder to follow. How do you tie this one together today?
So I think I'm impressed just by the sheer passion and the determination of, like, Russell having this dyslexia and being failed for it when he shouldn't have been, and all these hurdles that you had, but you used that determination to assist others so that they didn't feel undervalued. And I liked the advice, which I think is transferable, is find your passion, learn to train your brain around whatever that may be, and like I said, using those resources, be that AI exploration, building your skills.
Mm-hmm. Very good. All right. And Russell, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that you're open to being contacted by people who are, you know, in the same kind of boat that you were in and looking for help to get out of that boat. So how do they find you?
The easiest thing to do is just go to dyslexiaclasses.com. That's plural with an S, dyslexiaclasses.com. There's a button there that says download free guide. Just click on that, answer a couple of questions, you'll get a free guide. But the most important thing is to set up a time to speak with me. It's a half an hour, doesn't cost anything. I help talk to you and your child, find out what their specialty is, find out what their book is, their audio book, and how to get them started.
Excellent. And you said you've done hundreds of podcasts.
Hundreds and hundreds of kids. We're now in the process of moving everything over to a learning platform called School. I actually am having a mom who I met on a podcast. She is a certified elementary school teacher. And when her daughter was born, she became a homeschooling mom. Mm-hmm. She's bringing her son August through this, and she's going to be putting up how exactly she did it. And because she's a teacher, it's obviously going to be really, really great. And it just allows us to work with a lot of parents, because a lot of them say, well, I really can't afford much, and we work with every budget.
That's really great. I love that. Really, really good. One final thing that I like to do, since we're at the end of the show, and by the way, personally, I could have carried this conversation on for another half hour at least, because this was fun. I was a little bit afraid we were losing the audience, but I'm glad we kind of tied it together, so that's good. But one thing I always like to finish every episode with is when somebody like you comes onto the show as a guest, and you described your trials and tribulations that you went through. First of all, those are where we learn the most, and you learned a tremendous amount, to the point where you were able to actually help other people who go through the same kind of thing. And of course, that's the passion that you're bringing to this. That's why you're doing hundreds of podcasts. That's why you're helping hundreds of kids, because that's so important to you. But as you know, we now live in the 21st century where we're able to do podcasts, and we have all these different ways that we can publish social media, and we can write books and all kinds of stuff now that we couldn't do before. And we're reaching people in ways that we could never reach before. And in the process, we're getting followers who are following us in ways that we don't even know about. And I noticed that there's a little bit of a gap there because we don't get credit for that. So Russell, I wanted to tell you on behalf of those people that you've never met and never seen, never will meet and never will see, who you've been helping just by doing these podcasts and sharing on the various ways that you share online and social media and everything else that you do, people who you're helping, and you don't know that you're helping them, but you're helping them and you're just not getting credit for it. On their behalf, thank you for what you're doing, because you are making a difference in the world.
Well, thanks for having me. And just so you know, we met on Podmatch. This is my 151st podcast on Podmatch.
Is it really? Congratulations.
Yes. Well, if you look at the leaders board, I've been either 1 or top 5 for the past 5 months.
Very good. Yeah. So you've been active, very active.
Yep. This is my second podcast today. I'm doing 2 more tomorrow.
Wow. Fantastic. Yeah. Well, keep it up. Keep doing what you're doing. Great stuff. I mean, and thank you for sharing with us. So this has been a fascinating conversation for me. I don't know how many listeners I lost in the process, but I loved it. So thank you very much for that.
Well, thanks for having me on.
And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.